after the failure of Snow White due to Disney CEO Bob Iger and Rachel Zeggler involves more to do with how Bob Iger was recently punished in the most unexpected way possible after the box office nightmare for Disney.
What they really mean is they're describing a worldview that hates you. That hates everything America stands for.
The Walt Disney Company found itself facing a crisis of unanticipated scale. The turmoil arose from a live-action adaptation.
A company like Disney so up against it. Why? Because it doubled down on DEI.
And those who believed that close management of the star's voice was the only remaining strategy to mitigate financial ruin. The phrase box office poison began to surface among some circles, applied to Rachel Zeggler for the polarizing effect her outspokenness had on portions of the audience. Critics of this terminology noted that it oversimplified a complex issue that would capture the hearts of both loyal devotees and fresh audiences. Yet once the movie premiered, the tide turned. Critical reviews were lukewarm, public opinion plummeted, and ticket sales declined far more rapidly than analysts had predicted. By the end of its opening weekend, insiders were already questioning how, or if, Disney could salvage even a fraction of the success it had once aimed for.
And I think Snow White has become the pinnacle of this. This is going to go down in history as an asterisk next to Rachel Zeggler's name, Rachel Zeggler.
A video of herself in a theater. Maybe I think she bought that ticket right there.
Many had initially thought would be a grand reinvention of a much-loved classic. Guided by the optimism of Disney executives who felt the power of nostalgia would propel the project to box office glory, the film unexpectedly encountered problems on nearly every front. Early buzz had suggested a triumphant reinterpretation. Central to the storm that engulfed this adaptation was Rachel Zeggler, cast in the lead role. At first, her involvement had been touted as an inspired choice. She represented a new generation of talent who, some believed, could reinvigorate a classic tale. As soon as the film hit theaters, though, her public persona became the subject of mounting scrutiny. Critics and general audiences alike observed her frank interview style and combative approach on social media.
I don't really care about that. What I care about is how she hated the story because it needed to be wokeified, and she hated the fact that there was going to be a Prince Charming of some sort, and they needed to update it.
Disney's representatives on set tried to steer her back on topic, only to meet with stiff resistance. Tension escalated so quickly that the entire segment was pulled, and Zeggler was escorted off the set. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin were left to fill the void in real time, improvising for the live audience. For Bob Iger, this debacle posed a grave dilemma. He had sanctioned the project's major revisions to the iconic story, hoping to modernize it for new audiences.
I also like how Disney doesn't have any new ideas.
Right.
What have we done before that's worked? Let's do that again.
Yeah.
The film's script and production choices had also alienated fans. Still, her detractors contended that her involvement, and especially her handling of the press, was the flashpoint that turned a challenging release into a resounding failure. What had once looked like a casting coup, securing a rising young star and pairing her with an established fan favorite like Gal Gadot, was now cited by armchair analysts as a case study in how not to merge modern reinterpretations with the cultural reverence attached to the original source material.
Look at this. Look at this face. What can be said about this level of narcissism here?
The reviews, however, suggested that many fans felt alienated by the changes. Rumors began to circulate that Iger was facing pointed questions from Disney's board, who were concerned about the financial cost of this adaptation and the irreparable harm being done to the brand. While Disney had recovered from disappointments in the past, the magnitude of this fiasco, plummeting ticket sales, intensifying negative publicity, and an internal standoff between an A-list star and corporate leadership was shaking confidence in the CEO's judgment. As the film struggled at the box office, more questions emerged about its distribution plans. Speculation rose that Disney might expedite the movie's arrival on its streaming platform, cutting short its underperforming theatrical run to stem further losses. Some insiders saw this as the pragmatic option, a chance to bury the negative press under the quick transition. Others felt this approach would only confirm that Disney was conceding defeat, a sign that the film would be remembered solely as a fiasco. Fans of the classic lamented that what had begun as a celebration of nostalgic storytelling had turned into a maelstrom of internal conflicts, corporate miscalculations, and public feuding. Amid these crises, public attention turned to Bob Iger's leadership. The meltdown had cast Disney in a grim light, with loyal fans feeling betrayed and critics gleefully pointing out the company's apparent arrogance in believing it could reinvent a beloved story without repercussions. Industry watchers wondered if Iger would shoulder the blame for the project's many failings, or if he would try to shift culpability onto the filmmakers, the cast, or external circumstances.
Cheering for herself.
Creative missteps, combined with the controversies that engulfed Rachel Zeggler, ensured that the movie's reputation sank with near-record speed. The abrupt firing of Disney's top executive served as the final chapter in an extraordinary series of events that would be discussed for years to come. Outside commentators and business analysts quickly pointed to this episode as a clear message. Even Disney, a veritable titan in entertainment, was not immune to catastrophic missteps. Bold reinterpretations of cherished properties could alienate core fans, especially when paired with a star whose personal stance drew unwanted attention. The humiliating meltdown on The View illustrated how quickly standard promotional maneuvers could unravel. The addition of a major corporate shakeup at the highest levels turned a cinematic disappointment into a corporate fiasco, shining a spotlight on how the synergy, or lack thereof, between star, studio, and story can determine a film's fate. With Bob Iger gone, the question became, where does Disney go from here? Insiders whispered about pulling back on any further radical reinterpretations. Perhaps the studio would return to more measured updates, acknowledging the original themes and characters without veering too far from what generations of fans had grown up loving. Others believed that Disney, now wounded, might be slow to greenlight any major reimagining for the foreseeable future, opting instead for safer bets to regain trust. Yet constraints on free expression by lead actors, particularly on personal political stances, might also become stricter, fueling debates over whether Disney was stifling creativity and authentic voices. For Gal Gadot, the entire ordeal became an unfortunate chapter in her filmography. She had hoped this project would showcase her versatility and further endear her to international audiences. Instead, the unstoppable wave of controversy forced her to watch helplessly from the sidelines, as her involvement faded into near irrelevance. While fans continued to admire her, the overshadowing tension between Disney and Rachel Zeggler left little room to celebrate Gadot's performance. Even her critics admitted that her decision to remain silent likely helped her emerge with her reputation relatively unscathed. Observers could not help drawing comparisons with the meltdown on The View to past controversies. However, the removal of Disney's CEO cemented this crisis as a unique turning point. While Amanda Stenberg's stumbling interview in a previous Disney-related project had resulted in uncomfortable headlines, it did not precipitate such a dramatic outcome. Rachel Zeggler's situation showed that if the timing, stakes, and fan sentiment align in a certain way, the fallout could be explosive enough to shake the entire corporation from top to bottom. Whether lessons will be learned remains uncertain. On one side, there is a compelling argument for letting actors express genuine views, ensuring that promotional interviews feel authentic rather than scripted. On the other, the financial and reputational stakes in a big-budget adaptation make many studios wary of allowing any deviation from carefully plotted PR strategies. With Bob Iger ousted, the new leadership might either tighten the reins or seek a middle ground. Only time will tell if Disney's next wave of adaptations will strike the balance between honoring the classics and embracing the evolution demanded by contemporary audiences. In the broader scope of Hollywood history, this debacle will likely remain a cautionary tale. As studios continue raiding their archives for material to remake, they might revisit what went wrong here, a film undone by excessive reinterpretation